How hard is it to keep you cool? And do you have a responsibility as a manager to try and level it up a bit?
Impossible to keep your control. We try. Yes, we do have a responsibility. The guys would, at the weekend, they would admit, Jurgen admitted that he was wrong to have done that, but it's very difficult, really, until you stood in that technical area and you know the emotion, and it's so much more than being a player. You got to, everyone's expecting you to do something, and you're the one in charge of a group of men out there on the pitch and it's really important that you keep your cool, but it's almost impossible to be able to do it, and especially in emotional games, and there was no more emotional game than that one. It was great what we saw on the pitch. It's just a shame we're talking about what happened off it.
Does it have an effect on the crowd? Does it incite them, Tony, when you see the managers at touchline losing their cool as well?
Well, you could see after Foden scored, then disallowed the VAR decision, everyone gets it heated, and it goes from the terraces onto the pitch and then onto the touchline. There's like I said earlier, loads of coaches involved. It's not like 3 years like there was years ago. Yeah. I think it's really difficult. I'm surprised there hasn't been worse incidents between managers. And I'll ask Tim this because obviously he's been a manager, but I've been told in the last few years that there's not many, like years ago, it was always come in the manager's office, have a drink, and apparently that's nearly all disappeared, where there's not so often managers going in, having drinks afterwards or having a chat about the game.
Yeah, well, very few.
Very few, yeah.
It all depends. Obviously, if you lose the game, you want to go home. Arsene was great at that. We never used to see Arsene Wenger unless they won. So we saw him quite regularly.
Was about to say.
But no, that's the case. The socialising's gone out of it now. It used to be take a bottle of wine, but you still get it occasionally, Cass, but not on a regular basis.
Yeah. Listen, I'll hold up my hands because I admit that I quite enjoy a manager tussle. When we see like Tuchel and Conte, or in the past you see like Arsene Wenger and Mourinho on the touchline, I love it, and I'm like, this is exciting.
I did it once, Laura. Sorry,
who was it?
I did. It was nothing against him at all, but we were playing. I was a Tottenham manager, and we were playing Everton, and something happened on the pitch, and I booted the water bottles, and they exploded, and I turned around, I saw Roberto Martinez just wiping water off his head, and I said, I couldn't have done it to a nicer man. And I said, I'm really sorry, Roberto, I'm sorry. He said no problem. So when I went to Villa, the same thing was going to happen. I was going to kick it towards their dugout, and I thought twice about it, so I ended up back-heeling them, and as I back-heeled them, I popped my hamstring. I could not walk up for the press conference, which was handy after the game, but no, it went. I never got a hamstring injury, Cass. I never quick enough, but trying to backheel water bottles, I should have booted straight into it.
Did you learn from those two mistakes from losing your cool?
Yeah, but you still lose it. It's just impossible. The heat of the moment, and it's very difficult for the managers, but you're absolutely right. They have a responsibility.
Does it? So what I was going to say about this is a lot of us love it, right? You see the managers, and because I suppose you're supposed to be these upstanding pillars of community, and we look at you as the ones that are the controllers of the team and everything else, and you have that responsibility. So when managers lose their cool, you can't take your eyes off it. No. But that's in the name of entertainment. Does it have a ripple effect on fans as well? Does it, are we saying that not just on the players that we've kind of discussed, but some of the things that were happening at the weekend, for example, at Anfield, you can't just blame the managers for that, but does it?
You've used the word. It was a ripple effect, because once the goal gets disallowed, you then see Guardiola waving his arms and waving at all the Liverpool fans. They're getting annoyed, so they react to him. Then Klopp gets involved with the linesmen. It just spirals out of control. So it's very difficult. One thing we always loved about the game of football is that it's so passionate as a sport. It divides families, just by supporting two teams.
The Mail have written something today, Tony, and they've said a feud so dangerous that it threatens to become the most nasty rivalry in history. Now, there are some pretty nasty
I wouldn't agree
historic
with that.
Rivalries. Is it anywhere near those? What are the ones that spring to mind for you in the Premier League or before that?
Well, I personally, because although we know bits of it, but I always felt Antonio Conte and Mourinho, that could have been the worst one of the lot, because they clearly didn't have any time for each other at all. Where I thought there was some sort of respect at times with Wenger and Ferguson, although they'd have their differences. But if you're having people at the top of their game and they're fighting for their football club, they're going to explode.
I always remember this was just before Jose Mourinho got sacked at Manchester United and Conte was at Chelsea, and there were no questions allowed to be asked about each other. So one of us, I went to interview Jose Mourinho, and somebody else from Sky went to interview Conte, and we weren't allowed to ask any questions about that between them at all. And usually in situations like that, you're not censored that much. You might say, look, be careful about, you know what it's like, Tim. Be careful asking me about something like this. Like, do you want your head bitten off or not?
Yep.
That was such an off-bounds thing. So you're right. These rivalries do run quite deep, and managers a lot of the time they don't really want to. Perhaps they don't want to be drawn into it. Is that something as well?
Yeah, but do the fans not want to see it? I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer took a lot of criticism just by sitting down and watching the game very calmly, and the Man United fans were saying, well, why ain't he up there? Why ain't he shouting from the sides? I think the fans will want to see it. I think when the managers go head to head, then it's a little bit different. I think Conte with Tuchel was great.
I thouut it was as well.
It was
but
great.
A lot of people said no, they've got a responsibility.
No, but they have. We know they have, but sometimes it spills over, and that's what happened there. But they just wanted to kill each other, didn't they, at the time? You could see it in them, and Tuchel especially, because he's just like, they outplayed Tottenham in that game, and they scored. Tottenham get the equaliser hanging on 96 minutes, Harry Kane. All of a sudden, you cannot
down the line, Tim, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you cannot tell you that emotion, the emotion of the high when he sprints down the line. I mean, we've seen Jose do it at Anfield before, years and years ago. It's no different. My managers used to do it when I played, so it's been going on forever.
And you can't have managers doing a dressing room talk before you go out, and you're demanding everything from your players when they get on the pitch, and then the fans get caught up, because players can lift fans by their performance. So it all ignites a bigger problem, but it's what it is.
Like Van Gaal was the one for me. He used to sit there with that flip chart, and he sit there. I mean, we're talking about a very, very good manager, but. I don't know how you can sit down during a game when your team's taking part and you just to write stuff down on that flip chart. I just couldn't understand it.
Yeah. Just put help on the flip chart.
Do you remember that one time when he dropped himself to the ground? Just to emulate what happened. Who are the managers when you were pitch side, Tim, that I imagine there are some that you don't mind mouthing off to more than others? Were there any ones that you were like, I better not say anything to him?
No, I'd never say anything to any other manager unless I heard them saying something else, or
unless
or
they started it.
Yeah, so I never really had a confrontation with any. I'll tell you the one at the moment, and I think he's a good character. Jesse Marsch would wind me up. Just looking at him, just like sometimes I look at him and I think if I'm in that other dugout,
Why?
I don't know.
Because he's American.
No, nothing to do with that. He's over the top, isn't it? It's bravado. It's, and I'm not sure. We talked about. Danny Murphy said there. I know he thinks Jurgen's was genuine. I think it is. But I think.
Oh, you think he's playing to the cameras?
I think sometimes not playing to the cameras. I think he's very clever. I think he plays to that crowd base, that Ellen Road crowd base, and he knows if he gets them on side and there's a head of steam, it's very difficult for the away fans, for the home team. Sorry. So I think he's capable. I think he's capable of winding anyone up.
Pep's been accused of playing to the cameras before. Do you think he does that?
No. I think he's one manager who's not. I think he's totally genuine.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods, Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.